Have I been summoned? Ask and you shall receive. Ask and you shall receive. Also, thank you so much, guys, for 10,000 followers. My God. Overnight, too. Wow. Amazing. Okay. So I'm happy to do a deeper analysis on the whole cool girl thing with Taylor Swift. Yes, I'm happy to do that. So from the beginning of Taylor's career, her image has always been built on being this like all-American blonde white girl. And even like her breakout song, You Belong With Me, like this is a clip from the video, like she's portraying herself to be like this, you know, nerdy sort of like unassuming girl that like all like little, you know, little boring white girls frankly can relate to and like can see themselves in, right? And this is her image from the outset, okay? And it's to the point where it's actually like like between Red and 1989, Lord's breakout album happens, and actually Lord's breakout album happens, and you could almost say that Lord's breakout was a rejection of the sort of like cookie cutter, bubblegum, clean girl pop. And she goes as far as to actually criticize Taylor Swift, like at one point in an interview where she says something along the lines of Taylor Swift's image is so perfect and curated, and like that, I can't imagine the harm that that's doing to young girls, which is actually a pretty striking critique from like who was at the time, like Lorde when she broke through was a fucking phenomenon, one of like the biggest pop star phenomenons that was coming out. And so what Taylor Swift does is that she befriends her, and in befriending her, she's able to neutralize the critique successfully. But having befriended Lorde or not, the fact still stands that Taylor Swift is just not quintessentially a cool girl, right? And maybe by being Lorde's friend, she's more proximal to like this idea of being a cool girl, but she, at her core, fundamentally is not that, okay? And obviously, as we know, and it becomes very clear on this album, like Taylor Swift is very fixated with like high school, right? So, you know, obviously, as we've already been over, you know, she was obsessed during 1989 with having this like girl squad, being seen as like the popular girl, having people like feel jealous of her. All of those themes have reemerged on Life of a Showgirl, which indicates that all those feelings which is why the backlash to it has been so severe, because like all those feelings that people are all being like re-woken up, right? But again, it's like this idea of being like fixated on like image and fixating on being something that people want to be. But the one thing that she has never been seen as is cool. But when I say never, that's not quite right, because there was a time period which people affectionately call Bleachella, right? Which, and by the way, I actually happen to think that, and like a deep cut Swiftie will be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift and Mattie's first entanglement in like 2015, 2016 happens around the time of Bleachella, which Bleachella happens like just before she actually gets canceled. This is her at the Met Gala, which she was hosting in 2016. This is a very edgy look that she debuted. Obviously, she's got the kind of sexy blonde bob. She's got the like black lipstick. You know, I mean, I don't know. She looks hot. I think the look looks, frankly, like it looks great on her. You know what I mean? And this is like, for once in her career, for the first time in her career, Taylor's trying to shed that all-American girl image and kind of embody this like edgy image, okay? Another Bleachella picture. I thought she looked hot, so that's why I showed it. And she does this like culminating in like obviously Reputation, which is a very sort of dark aesthetics, kind of like edgier album. But I don't know if it was like because, I don't know, she just, at some point, I think this doesn't feel authentic to her, because it isn't really who she is at the end of the day. At the end of the day, Taylor Swift is like very much a basic white girl who like loves cats and baking sourdough bread. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, that is actually how she became as famous as she is, right? Because she's her whole basis of her fame, which by the way, the next video, just a spoiler, that I'm doing is why this current showgirl thing is actually hurting her and like affecting her core fan base. It's like the basis of why people love her so much is because she's so relatable, because they can see her as in their lyrics, because despite being a famous person, you know, she dresses in kind of like a basic way. She's never like perfectly stylish. She's never like perfectly polished, you know. And I think that what happens in the Lover era is that she goes back to being like, you know, who she is deep down, which I think is like an authentic thing. And, you know, she starts dating Joe, and all that Bleachella stuff kind of fades to memory and just can be like written off as like, oh, just a phase, right? But ultimately, the point is, this was an energy that she couldn't embody and habitate with in a lasting way, right? Well, Gabriette and Charli XCX are just the opposite, obviously. You know, Charli XCX, her career started with, like, her breakthrough was, like, Fancy and, like, Boom Clap. But then she went super alt-pop, super edgy, not as approachable type of music. But that's the thing. The thing about Charli is that she actually came up on the rave scene. So much of her image is about being, like, a party girl, which is why the whole Actually Romantic song, her talking about, like, oh, the coke's got you brave. Like, as if Charli hasn't made that, like, a defining part of her aesthetic. Like, it was kind of like a ridiculous insult. It's like someone insulting you and saying, oh, well, you know, you're too educated. I'm like, okay, you got me. Like, you know. But in many ways, like, Charli is like the epitome of a cool girl. But if there's anybody who's more of an epitome of a cool girl, it is Gabriette girl. Gabriette is extremely edgy, and she very much has that sort of like it girl, cool girl vibe, right? Her whole thing is, I was like looking her up a little bit, they call her aesthetic like succubus gothic chic. Like, come on, there's nothing like more edgy than that, you know? And she's a model, but she also used to apparently have a band that Charli helped her with called Dirty Cherry, which, like, you know, you learn something new every day, which I think is, anyway, this girl's cool as fuck. I mean, and it's undeniable how, like, just fucking cool she really is, like, you know? And once again, that's an image that Taylor could only kind of like put on as a costume, but wasn't actually true to the core of her identity, okay? So, cut to her relationship with Mattie Healy, right? So, if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure that Gabriette and Mattie were dating, and then Taylor Swift and Mattie started seeing each other and kind of broke them up. And then Mattie ghosts her and goes straight back to Gabriette. So essentially, and also in many interviews, or like, I don't know, honestly, like, he's implied that her music isn't art, like that she's basic, like mining your life for content for your songs isn't real artistry or whatever. Basically just kind of like talking down on the essence of everything that Taylor Swift is, which I'm sure is creating like the biggest like narcissistic wound. And that is, you don't even have to be a narcissist to have a narcissistic wound, but like, he's really insulting like the core of who she is. And for the man who you have fantasized about and had this like 10-year fixation, and who you claim clearly in Tortured Poets to be like deeply in love with, to leave you and choose and marry immediately, get engaged to this sort of very quintessential edgy cool girl which is an identity that you have not been able to successfully embody, to the point where it's actually a deep insecurity in her career. I mean, if you listen to the song Clara Bow, she says at the very end, she's like, you look just like Taylor Swift, except you're way cooler or edgier or sexier. I can't remember the adjective she used, but anyway, the point is edgier than she ever was, right? So it's an insecurity that has not only plagued her insofar as like she couldn't actually inhabit it, but it's also an insecurity that has impacted her career and impacted her reach, because at the end of the day, people do criticize her and see her as like a basic, boring white girl, and that impacts the level to which she can be sort of universally accepted. Although obviously she has reached such heights where she seems to have overcome that, you know, but she's undermining all of that right now. And at the end of the day, remember, Taylor's obsessed with high school, right? She's obsessed with like being the popular girl, and she to the point where she was like throwing them 4th of July parties, trying to portray this image of being the popular girl. But at the end of the day, it's for people like Charli XCX and Gabriette, they don't have to like portray an image of being cool. They just are at their core. And that level of authenticity is something, in terms of like just being cool in that sense, is something that Taylor Swift will never ever be able to capture. And therefore, that means that the man that she wants is loves and desires someone who has something that she will never ever be. And that must be really, really upsetting to a woman who has always in her entire life gotten everything that she wanted, except him at the end of the day. Because why? Because at the end of the day, he wanted her. And that's why. The end.